This is One on One.
My name is Terry Anderson. I would like to send my thanks and those of my fellow prisoners, David Jacobson and Tom Sutherland, to all those in America who are working and praying for our release.
Wow. That was Terry Anderson. We'll talk about that in a second, but Sulome Anderson, author of The Hostage's Daughter, a powerful book, the story of family madness in the Middle East. Your dad. For those who do not remember the reality, if you will, of Terry Anderson, 7 years captivity. Where?
In
when?
Lebanon. In Lebanon, he was kidnapped 1985, 3 months before I was born.
3 months before you were born.
That's right.
So, at an early age, what did you know?
I always knew. My mother never lied to me, or I mean, I think she tried to shield me as much as possible. But like as far back as I can remember, I knew my father had been, held against his will by bad men, and she would tell me that he was coming home soon. And I recently came across a newspaper clipping from when I was 2, so I don't even remember this. Apparently, I had told the reporter. They asked if I had a message for my father, and I said, please come home, Daddy, our hearts are breaking, which is, pretty intense for a 2-year-old. Yeah.
By the way, we're not gonna do justice to the power of this book, so go out and get it. But I want to ask you something. As I was reading through excerpts from the book, what struck me is that you had this intense desire to find your father's captors. Because?
Well, that was always the holy grail for me when I started writing this book. I got to a point where I didn't think it was going to happen. Everything I reported would lead me into places where I was sort of bumping up against the captors. Like people in the neighborhoods I would visit would say to me, we know where one of his kidnappers is. He lives in that house right there. Or your father was held in that house. Because it's a small sort of community, and at the time, most people knew what was happening. So I guess the reason I wanted to find them was because I had read my father's book and I had spoken to him about this, mostly just heard him speak about it. I knew that not all the guards were awful. Some of them were abusive psychopaths who just liked, inflicting pain upon people. But others were kind, tried to do little kindnesses for them, and obviously felt very conflicted about what they were doing. So I already had this awareness that not all of them were monsters. And I wanted to understand what could bring a person who is not a monster to the place where they can do something like that.
You also said that on some level, that our idea about those who have done this, and it's interesting how you've tried to balance this in your perspective on this is extraordinary. You don't have hatred, and you forgave, and your father forgave. Because?
Well, I think Dad, when he first came home, said that he forgave and he held no bitterness. But I honestly think that was more a product of his overall tendency to distance himself from his emotions, which is a coping mechanism he developed when he was, in captivity, which makes perfect sense. So, he would say, I don't hold any bitterness, but I think that was maybe not the truth. I think he did hold on to anger for a long time without even being aware of it. For me, I was angry. I was angry for a long time. What they did to my father shaped the rest of my life in really negative ways. So, yeah, I was angry, but I wanted to understand more than I wanted revenge, if that makes sense.
But we have footage, help me on this, of your father's release. Can we show some of that footage? That's returning to the Associated Press offices. Wow. Is that you in there?
Yeah, that's me. Being bounced around like a pinball.
As you look at those pictures, what goes through your mind?
It's sad. I mean, I look at myself sort of, you see my dad sort of, ushering me along, and I'm obviously completely overwhelmed. And I mean, look, I mean, how would you feel? You were just a child and all of this is happening. I mean, I do feel sad thinking about it because I really wanted it to be a happy ending. I think the world wanted it to be a happy ending. I idealized my father for the first 6.5 years of my life. I thought he was going to be a superhero. Everyone around me would say, your father's a hero, and he is, but he's also a human.
Right.
And, in my mind, he became some sort of, ideal figure. And then when he came home, he was very damaged. He didn't really know how to connect with me. So
I'm sorry for interrupting. What was family life like early on?
It was hard. It was really hard. We fought a lot. My parents fought a lot. I felt increasingly isolated and lonely. It was very dysfunctional.
Today, what's it like? You have a smile right away as soon as you said that. Why?
Yeah, my parents and I have really come through a lot of pain, and I think it's made our bond much stronger. My father and I are much closer. I think part of that is because we bond a lot over journalism. That's something that has brought us together. My mom, I've learned how to accept my mother's, idiosyncrasies, and she's not the easiest woman, but she loves me, beyond reason. And I think that's part of also growing up. You learn to accept your parents as people.
Not everyone does.
No.
Smart people like you do.
Thank you.
What's the message you would like others to take? Because one of the things I was reading here is that you said that, I don't want to answer the question for you. You do not look at people from a monolithic perspective, those who would be our enemies.
No. I think something we do that is not helpful at all in terms of strategically or morally is that we dehumanize our enemies, especially when it comes to terrorism, right? The fact of the matter is terrorists are people. That doesn't mean you excuse what they've done.
Even if they want to kill us and destroy our way of life.
I mean, yes, because irreversibly they are human beings. I'm not saying that they are right or they should be excused or anything. I mean, you can see them as, it's all situational, right? It's like if you see when, for example, a white man in America does a mass shooting, right? Everybody's so concerned about his mental state, his childhood, what brought him there, the context surrounding this crime, right? Do you see any of that context surrounding a terrorist act committed by a Muslim? But the point is that there is context around it. Again, that's not an excuse. People have choices, and they, when they make those kind of choices, it's almost more evil. But you can't fight something you don't understand, and to just paint it as, this monster, this inhuman thing is just, I don't think it's helpful.
You don't think it helps us?
No, I mean, obviously, I don't think we've learned how to, react to it well, or I mean, you can see it happening all around us.
Your perspective is important for us to think about and consider, and this book is powerful in so many ways, and we thank you for, you said it took 3 years to write this,
yeah,
and I would encourage people to go out and get it and read it. The Hostage's Daughter, the story of family madness in the Middle East. I want to thank you for joining us on public television.
Thank you, too.
We'll be right back right after this.
One on One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One on One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Bartley Healthcare, Georgian Court University, the New Jersey Association of Health Underwriters, Fedway Associates, Choose New Jersey, Adler Aphasia Center, and by NJM. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One on One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System.